Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you. Should be an interesting conversation tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Should be a great chat. I'm looking forward to our interactions. So let's have a good conversation.
Of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad of you all to be here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Now be sure to hit the notifications bell. It would always be appreciated if you hit the notifications bell. The reason to do that is because of the fact that you get notified if you hit the notifications bell. You get notified if you hit the notifications bell. And if you hit the notifications bell, at that point, you'll get a notification every time we do these streams. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. They have been unsubscribing people. There's this algorithmic thing where people get unsubscribed against their wishes. YouTube has admitted that they've done it. So by all means, make sure that you've hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get notifications and subscriptions. The way we do these streams, okay. Odd question, but all right, I can talk about that if you want me to. The way we do these streams is that I give my opening remarks, and then my opening remarks are generally followed by the roll call, where we find out who is on the other side of the camera, who's watching. And it's always great to hear who's there. We call everybody out, names and locations. That's pretty exciting. And then the rest of the show is me answering super chat questions for the rest of the night. So the second half of the show is all you guys. If you guys ask good questions, the show goes on. So by all means, get me talking. Ask me to comment on what's on your mind. I try to answer every question within reason. There are some things, obviously, some rabbit holes we can't go down, but within reason, I try to give an off-the-cuff response to whatever people have on their minds. So that's how it works. So if there's something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, by all means, shoot me a super chat and we will do that. So I do have a quick announcement. I am going to be interviewing a very, very special person tomorrow. Somebody who is fighting on the front lines of, the Donetsk People's Republic, an American, Russell Texas Bentley. I'm going to be interviewing him, but because of the YouTube censorship and all of that, I won't be posting it on this YouTube channel. I will be posting it on the Rockfin. So tomorrow, keep an eye out for my interview, my exclusive interview with Russell Texas Bentley. I will be posting it on the Rockfin. I won't be posting it on this YouTube channel because of YouTube censorship. So I'll be posting it on Rockfin. I keep an eye out for that link. It'll be exclusively on the Rockfin. You'll have to sign up for Rockfin in order to watch it, but it's going to be a chat between me and Russell Texas Bentley. We're scheduled to speak tomorrow morning. It'll be early morning my time, and then I'll just post it immediately on the Rockfin. So we'll see how that goes. Political analysis of mainstream movies, no hammer film. I don't know what no hammer film means, but that's okay. All right. Political analysis of mainstream movies, No Hammer film. All right. Wrote it down. History of the Taliban. All right. History of the Taliban. Did they decrease All right. That's a good question as well. So there you go. Of course, those are not mainstream films. They're quite obscure and classical these days, but there you go. All right. So I guess, with no further ado, I will start in with my opening remarks. I want us all to just breathe. I'm going to take a deep breath. And we're going to let it out. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to let it out. And I just want to acknowledge something. I want to start out this stream by acknowledging something. Everyone I know is struggling right now. Everyone. People are worried about paying their bills. People are having insane fights with their relatives. People are having medical problems. People are losing their jobs. People are struggling. Everyone I know. There is not one person in my life I know right now who's doing great. If you ask them right now, how you doing? And they said, I'm doing randy dandy. I'm doing great. There's not one person, not one in my social circle right now who at this very moment is having a good time. Not one. Not one. But the way the system has us set up to think, we're all supposed to think we're the only one suffering. That's the way we've all been trained. We're the only one suffering. We all get on Facebook, we get on YouTube, we turn on our television, and we think everybody else is having a great time. And we're struggling. And that just shows there's something inherently wrong with us because we're miserable, we're struggling, and everyone else is doing great. Well, I'm here to tell you folks, everyone else is not doing great. Literally everyone I know is miserable right now for a wide variety of reasons. People are, like I said, I know people who are busy fighting with their families. I know people who are struggling to pay their bills. I know people that are having a huge amount of anxiety about their jobs. I know people who've lost their jobs. I know people that are having medical problems right now. Literally everyone I know is struggling right now. There's something in the atmosphere. There is something in the atmosphere that is dark, that is not good. This is a hard time to be alive. And I keep saying that to people. This is a very hard time to be alive. It's extremely hard to be alive. People are not capable of maintaining relationships like they once were. People are not capable of holding themselves together like they once were. People are struggling. And if you are watching this, you are probably struggling. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, you could be anybody watching this. There's 102 of you watching now. We just started, so it'll be a lot more pretty soon. But, if you're watching this, you are probably struggling for some reason. And you are not alone. And the lie that you've been fed, that everyone else is doing great, everyone else is doing fine, it's just you. It's just a problem with you. I'm here to tell you, based on my observations, that's bullshit. because everyone I know, literally every person I know, is having a rough time. And, yeah, I'm having a rough time. It's been a rough few months for me for reasons that you all are very well aware of. And you know what? But I think about the circumstances that I'm in, and as bad as things have been, it hasn't been a good few months for me. Compared to a lot of the people I know, I'm doing great. And that shows you how bad things are in this country right now. Things are bad. Things are bad. The economy is bad. The cultural situation is bad. Spiritually, things are bad. Psychologically, things are bad. We are living in the last days. We are living in the last days. And there's no reason to beat around the bush and deny that. We are living in the last days. These are the last days. And you don't want to hear that. And, that's something that I've always heard, my whole life, right? They say, oh, the communists always think the revolution's happening right around the corner. Communists always think we're on the brink of a revolution. Used to always hear this from boomers. They'd say, well, Caleb, after 3 or 4 years, you'll realize that the revolution's not coming. And then you'll move on with your life and you'll become an insurance salesman or a dentist. But no, I'm telling you, there is something special about the time we are living, and it's not a good special. It's not a good special. No, we're not living in the 1960s. No, we're not living in the 1980s. We are living in the last days. These are the last days of American imperialism. U.S. imperialism is coming apart. The global system of monopoly capitalism, finance capital dominant over industrial capital, banks sitting at the center. We are watching imperialism come to its logical conclusion, and these are the last days. And that is why this insanity is persisting. This is the imperialist ideology taken to its logical conclusion, but it's rooted in the economic foundations. Right? What held U.S. imperialism together for so long was the aristocracy of labor, that well-paid layer of working class people in the homeland who had a decent standard of living, and so they were loyal to the empire. What we are seeing now is the demolition of the aristocracy of labor, the living standards that held U.S. imperialism together, that created that big soft middle at the center of U.S. society that kept a big chunk of the population loyal and supporting imperialism and their wars, etc. That's being rooted out. And living standards are dropping, and we're facing a long-term crisis of overproduction. They don't need industrial workers anymore in their high-tech, low-wage economy. But on top of that, we are also seeing the ideological deterioration. Because really, since the end of the Second World War, among the ruling class, they started to embrace what, in this big, huge book, George Lukács, he calls philosophical irrationalism. The belief that there is no truth, there is no right and wrong, that it is the law of the jungle. The Friedrich Nietzsche ideology, the watered-down, dumb version of which is promoted by Ayn Rand, and another watered-down, dumb version is promoted by Leo Strauss. This is the ruling ideology of the United States and of the Western world. This is what they believe. All opposing viewpoints are on the defensive now. Christianity, which used to be the foundation, that was the foundation of Western civilization. Western Europe was founded on Christianity, more or less. The Romans brought Christianity to Western Europe, and then their empire declined. And then, you started to see the buildup of Western civilization on the basis of Christianity, the Catholic Church, the Protestant Reformation, etc. Well, Christianity is now on the defensive. And all the other ideologies are on the defensive as well. The teachings of fascism, the teachings of communism, the teachings of various religions, the teaching, any moral or ethical code, any illiberalism is at this point on the defensive and under attack. And people are being told to be purely selfish. People are being told that there is no right and wrong. People are being told that there is no actual truth. People are being told that there is no point and purpose to life. And people on top of that are being brainwashed and programmed to be afraid of any truth, to believe that anyone who tells you that right and wrong exists is trying to scam you. If you believe that there is right and wrong and morality, that you're a sucker. They're training you to believe that anyone who comes to you and says there's a purpose in life and there's something that's worth fighting for and dying for, anyone who tells you that is an evil totalitarian cultist. This is the world that we are living in, right? We are living in a world where that ideology, philosophical irrationalism, Nietzsche, Ayn Rand, Leo Strauss, the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, that's what they believed. It was just kind of a stupid cloak and dagger performance act, but that's what they promoted, right? All of this is playing out. And we're facing a civilizational, cultural, spiritual decay. And we're facing an economic decay, the demolition of the aristocracy of labor, a long-term crisis of overproduction. This is all playing out. And this is a really hard time to be alive. It's a really, really hard time to be alive. It is not easy to be alive in a time like this, where people are being told that right and wrong don't exist, where people are being told that there is no point in life, where economically living standards are dropping. It's a really hard time to be alive. And then you can throw into the hopper that they're actively trying to kill you. They are trying to kill you. They want you to become depressed and hopeless. They want you to be suicidal. They want you to kill yourself with drugs. They want you to be addicted to something they can make money off of, whether it's opioids or marijuana or pornography or whatever. They want to be able to program you like a calculator. They want to be able to control you, and they want you to die. And they are actively trying to kill you. And for a lot of us, every day is a battle. Every day is a battle against the forces of evil and death and destruction. I mean, I know lately with the weather in New York, the way it's been, my body just wants to curl up. Just wants to curl up and be warm all day long and not go outside and not do anything. It just wants to curl up and be warm. And so I have to fight every day to make myself get up and go to the gym and exercise, to make me go sit someplace and see people. I work from home. And for me, yes, all the forces in the world would like me to just roll up. And I see all the pessimism that's coming out of social media. I see all the hopelessness that's coming out there. It's very hard. And for so many of us, every day is a battle because the world is trying to kill us. The ruling class is intentionally trying to drive down the population. They want to lower our wages and living conditions. They're in an economic crisis. They're pushing degrowth and Malthusianism. But on top of that, we're living in a period where all the things that human beings need in order to have their shit together are being gotten rid of. Stable employment, stable jobs, stable living conditions, family support, a stable belief system, an ideology to hold your beliefs together. Everything that holds a society together is coming apart. So if you are struggling right now, you are not alone. And then that is the most sinister thing about it. We're all suffering right now. We're all miserable. We're all sitting at home. We're all thinking that we're failures. We're all thinking that we're screw-ups. We're all hopeless. We're all struggling to remain active. We're struggling against this evil that they've unleashed into the universe. And they've convinced all of us that we're the only ones. That we're the only ones. It's just us. Everyone else is doing fine. Look at the people on the TV. They're happy. Look at the people on the Facebook. All your friends on Facebook are posting pictures about their, kid getting an A+ on his spelling test, and they're doing great. You're the only one who's suffering. And it's bullshit. You're not the only one suffering. Every single person I know is suffering right now. Every single one. So you are not alone. And the problems that you are facing are not problems that only you are facing, and they're not rooted in your own flaws. And that's what they really want you to believe, that if you have a problem, it's because you're weak, right? You're weak. You're one of the defective ones. You're weak. Well, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Because if that was the case, the suicide rate wouldn't be what it is right now. If that was the case, the opioid addiction rate wouldn't be what it is right now. The idea that you're suffering right now just because there's some defect in you, you're just not good enough, right? The society is determined that you are not good enough. Well, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. We are living in the last days, and this is what the last days look like. And the last days ain't pretty. However, I will reassure you all, as hard as this might be to believe, and as hard as it is to see this, in a way, we are lucky. We are lucky because the doors are finally going to open. We are lucky because unlike the great revolutionaries of the 1930s, and unlike the great revolutionaries of the 1960s, there could be a revolution in the United States. We are heading toward a moment where the USA could actually become a socialist society. We are heading toward a period where some kind of mass revolutionary organization could actually take power. And it has to be bad. It's always darkest before dawn. And revolution is not a dinner party, as they say. And we are actually heading toward a period where a real revolution, not just an upsurge of interest in communism, not just widespread questioning of the status quo, not just a strong labor movement. We are heading toward a period where the United States could become a socialist country. And American imperialism and capitalism could be not just weakened and deteriorating from within, but could actually be overthrown. So this is certainly something to be aware of. And as hard as it is to realize that as tough as these times are full of great potential opportunities, and something good could ultimately come out of this. Something very, very good. Something better than all of us can imagine. But the stakes get higher in times like this. The stakes weren't so high a decade ago. The stakes were even less high 20 years ago. The stakes are getting higher. The opportunities are increasing. And the instability in society is also increasing. And many people are feeling it. And the status quo as it exists cannot continue. And liberalism, the Western liberal order, is deteriorating into some form of illiberalism. That's pretty clear. And that liberalism is going to collapse into some form of illiberalism. But the question is, what kind of illiberalism will it be? And the question is, how will that be done when there's not even enough unity among the capitalists to pull off something like fascism? In the 1930s, Western capitalism was in crisis. And so in Italy and Germany and other places, you got fascism. I don't think they have enough unity to pull off fascism in this time. There had to be a bloc among the capitalists willing to accept a fascist society. I don't think there's enough unity to pull that off even now. So we're in an interesting period. And at the same time that the West is deteriorating, Russia and China are doing fine. And the Bolivarian countries of Latin America are getting stronger. And Iran and Russia are getting closer. Iran and China are getting closer. I'm just telling you, folks, the alternative to Western capitalism and imperialism is getting stronger every day. Every day. And the West is coming apart. It's coming apart. And this period is full of great potential, as hard as it is to recognize it. But we have to make a choice. We have to make a decision to commit ourselves to the hard work of seizing the moment and making it happen. And not just letting things continue to deteriorate. Because on their own, left to their own devices, that's what will happen. Things will just continue to deteriorate. I'm a Christian as well. And I am with you, absolutely. We can talk about that on other streams. I've talked about that. That's not what I'm talking about tonight, but I'll put that in the chat. But I just wanted to talk about that. And I also just wanted to mention, I don't have, I'll just say I'm proud of myself right now because I do not have Twitter on my phone and I do not have Twitter or Facebook on my phone. If I want to look at my Facebook, I got to get to a laptop, open my laptop. If I want to look at Twitter, I got to get on my laptop. And that's good for me because social media is a cesspool. It is an utter cesspool. It is an utter cesspool. And even just seeing it on my laptop has been sickening. Folks, I want to tell you something. I just want to get this off my chest. This is just something I need you all to understand. I have spent my whole life studying and learning and understanding Marxism and then trying to teach people about Marxism and socialism. And I have worked very hard to refute the stereotypes and lies we are told about communism and Marxism. And I was in school. I learned that communists want everyone to get paid the exact same wage, no matter how hard they work. I learned that communists are against people having money. They want people to be poor because capitalism is where everyone gets rich and has lots of money, and communists are against people having money and having stuff. I learned all kinds of things. And I learned over years and years of studying and work how to explain these things. For example, one time I was riding the school bus. I think I was in the marching band. I was riding the school bus. I went to a high school in a small town. There was a kid on the bus with me. I was talking to him, and he got all fired up. And he said to me, they always say white people are bad because of the Ku Klux Klan, he said. But no one ever talks about how the black people formed this group called the Black Panthers, and the Black Panthers run around killing white people. And so what did I do? I had to explain to this young man who was misinformed that the Black Panthers were not a group that went around killing white people. They were not a black equivalent of the Ku Klux Klan. The Black Panthers were a Marxist-Leninist organization that started free breakfast programs, free housing, and that they viewed black people as a colonized people within U.S. borders, but they had many white supporters, that they were a great organization of revolutionary anti-imperialists, Marxists, that were fighting for what they viewed as an oppressed black nation within U.S. borders. And I feel like I educated this young guy and explained to him that the Black Panthers started out as a self-defense group. They were fighting for, to stop police brutality. Their first protest was a gun rights demonstration. I felt like I was able to communicate to my peer very patiently to get him to understand the Black Panthers were not the Ku Klux Klan for black people, that no, the Black Panthers did not just randomly go around killing white people. I was able to actually tell him the truth. And I was really glad to be able to have that conversation. I feel like he learned something in that conversation. However, now we have a group of people who call themselves leftists who, rather than being able to explain to someone, like I explained to my peer when I was in high school about what the Black Panthers were really about, that if he had said to them the Black Panthers hated white people, these people would go, yeah, I hate white people too. You know? And that's what they do. That's what woke internet shitheads do. I've worked my whole life to try and get people to understand that no, the Black Panthers did not hate white people, that no, the Black Panthers were a revolutionary anti-imperialist organization, and that actually fighting for the rights of black people benefits white people as well, and that the racism hurts all working. I worked really hard to try and get people to understand this, but now we've got all these people claiming that they're Marxists who just go around, yeah, I hate white people too. White people's lives are too good. I want white people to be poor. I think the Black Panthers should have killed a lot of white people. And they're all white too, which is what makes it so stupid. They're all white. And they're like, yeah, man, white people have white privilege. The Black Panthers should have killed a lot more white people. And instead of educating people about Marxism, they just do this performative, stupid shit. And it's on every issue they do this. My whole life, I've been explaining to people, no, communism is not when everyone gets paid the same wage. In a socialist society, the means of production, the banks, factories, and industries, the centers of economic power are organized to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few. The oil companies and the factories and the big box stores, the banks, these things are organized to serve the people so that we can have full employment, so that the economy can be better. No, we communists don't want to take your house and your car. No, we don't want to take away your personal property. No, we're not against people having wealth. We're not against people having wealth. What we want is for a society where the economy serves everybody so that wealth in society can increase for everybody and poverty can be eradicated. In fact, we want a society with so much wealth in it that the state itself withers away, that we don't need a government, right? That there can be so much abundance that it's to each according to their own ability, to each according to their need. So no, we don't want to take your toothbrush. No, we don't want you to get paid the same wage. No, we're not angry that you worked really hard to save up to buy this nice car. We want every worker to be able to afford a nice car. No, we're not trying to take your house that you've spent years paying off. No, we're not trying to take that away from you. We want every working person to be able to afford a decent house. And we want Amazon and Walmart and ExxonMobil and Chase Bank to become the property of the people so that the economy is no longer chaotic and that growth can continue. That's what we want. That's what we want. We are not against wealth. We're not against you. I've worked really, really hard to learn how to explain this to people. And then these fuckheads come along. They're like, yeah, China's not really socialist because there's billionaires there. And the whole point of communism is to make everyone equal, you know? And like, yeah, everyone should be poorer because the environment, man, we just need to have less. Everyone needs to be poorer. We need to like degrow. The problem with capitalism is everyone has stuff. People have houses and cars and all that. They all need to be poorer. They all need to poop in their backyard and not have toilets. Ugh. I've spent years trying to explain to people what socialism actually means in terms of economics. And these fuckers, it's like they took the anti-communist stereotype that we all learned in school, and then they just started doing it because they thought it would be cool. Oh my God. You spend years explaining to people that the Black Panthers don't want to murder white people. The Black Panthers were a socialist group and that the fight of black rights is for all workers. The Black Panthers were really awesome. And then these people come along and they do want to kill all white people. spent years explaining to people socialism isn't about making everyone poor. Socialism isn't about making everyone absolutely equal in terms of income. No, socialism is not taxation. We're not against wealth. And then these people come along, yeah, man, tax the rich, abolish billionaires. Woo, yeah, white people have too much stuff. We need to make everyone poorer. Oh my God. And you can't argue with these fuckers. Right? You work very hard to explain to people that, communism is American. That Abraham Lincoln had a communist general in the Union Army named August Willich, and that there was a communist division of the Union Army called the Ohio 9th Infantry Regiment, led by a communist named Joseph Wedemeyer, and that communists were very involved in supporting the fight to defeat slavery, that Roosevelt aligned with communists, that we aligned with the Soviet Union to defeat fascism in World War II. And that, that Robert Owen, the guy who first used the word socialism in the English language, he set up a commune in Indiana called New Harmony. You work very hard to explain to these, to explain that, no, we don't want to destroy the country. We understand that socialism will make the country better, and that having an economy that serves the people and breaking out of imperialism and instead aligning with Russia and China and Venezuela and Iran, this will make the country better. And that if we had an economy to serve the people, this would be better. And you work very hard to explain that there is a progressive side to America, and that, no, we're not un-American, that all throughout American history there have been progressives and revolutionaries and others. And then these fuckers just come along. No, man, I hate America. Burn American flags, man. Yeah, I hate this country. Anyone who thinks that Marx and Lincoln had anything common is retarded, man. Yeah, I hate Lincoln. He was an old white dude. Yeah. God, these people, and they know nothing about the history of the Communist Party. They know nothing about the history of our movement. And they go out of their way to offend people, out of their way to denounce everything that's ever existed in this country. They go out of their way to get average Americans to think that we're in, that we want to destroy their lives and destroy their communities and their countries. These people are garbage. These people are utter garbage, and you cannot associate with them. Seriously, if you're actually interested in what Marxism is, if you're actually interested in building some kind of Marxist movement, you can't associate with them. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, you cannot associate. I mean, these people are garbage. They are garbage, all right? Everything that we are trying to do, if we have a serious political movement, we have to get people to understand that we want to benefit all working people, and that racism and the prison industrial complex hurts all workers. But these people don't want to help all workers. They want all white people to be poor. These people do hate white people. These people do want white people to have it less. And if you dare suggest that class solidarity is good for all workers, they get all triggered. They just want to talk about how they've been victimized by people who have slight, maybe 5% more than them or something. These people, you go around explaining that socialism is about making everyone wealthier, and that it's about having an economy where growth is unlimited. And they go, no, we're against growth. They do want everyone to be poorer. These people do want everyone to be poorer. These people do hate America. They do want to destroy the country. They do want people to be poor. It's horrifying to me. And the scariest part about this is that this woke shit has been intentionally designed not to ever take power. There will never be a truly woke government in Washington, D.C. Right? Biden gives lip service to these kind of ideas, but there's never actually going to be a woke government in Washington, D.C. These people's ideology has been packaged to just be an emotional release, to just be a useful emotional release for angry teenagers. It's nothing but resentment. It's nothing but cancel culture and punishment. It's nothing but temper tantrums and hopelessness. That's all it is. It's not an ideology that could ever be voted into office. Imagine if Biden announced that his platform was destroy America. How many people would vote for him? Right, well, these people would. This 10% of people that are woke, they would vote for him. Yeah, all of them are. This 10% of people, they would vote for him. But aside from them, very few people, very few people would support it. It's intentionally designed not to have mass appeal. They come up with policies that are not real policies. Open borders now. Explain that one to me. Open borders now. So what? We just don't have a border? Even if we allowed every person who wanted to visit the United States to visit the country, we would still have a customs. They'd still have to show their passport or show their ID. We would let them in, but they'd still have to have, every socialist country in the world has borders. Every socialist country in the world has, people that, customs. Okay. And the fact that these people would even raise the slogan open borders now, Joe Biden is never going to is never going to say, all right, you know what? Just, tear down all the fences, everything. Just, come on. They're never going to do that. Even if you allowed all citizens in, there would still be a checkpoint. There'd still be a place for them to check in and show their ID. So when you say open borders now, that's intended to not be a real policy. It's designed to be an emotional temper tantrum. And they say, open borders now, open borders now. And you say, wait, how does this work? Okay. So we don't have a checkpoint. We don't take anyone's ID when they come. Oh my God, you want to kill immigrants. That's what you want to do. You want to kill all the immigrants. These people are garbage. All right. There are some of us who are actually intelligent and actually think about this stuff and have actually done the hard work of trying to build a real organization and develop real policies to actually challenge this. And these people don't. These people are just performing. And the ruling class sits back and laughs at them. And Danny Haiphong is one of them. Danny Haiphong is human garbage. He is human garbage. And Luna Oy and all of these people, they are garbage. They are just garbage because they sit there and they pander to this. There are some people that have actually studied Marx and Lenin and all of this, and they have developed real policies about how to do this. And they just sit there. They want open borders now. They want Americans to be poorer. Yeah, white Americans should be killed. The Black Panthers should have killed more white people. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, these people. We are sitting here and we're trying to explain that the Black Panthers were a good organization of revolutionary Marxist-Leninists. We're trying to explain socialism, doesn't mean making everyone poor. It actually means organizing the economy for public good and not profit. We're sitting here trying to explain, we're not against people having wealth. And they just sit there and they just pander with this stupid stuff that will never take power. Will never take power. And no one's ever going to vote for a candidate who says, when I get in, there will be no border. No one's going to vote for a candidate like that, right? Even if you allowed every person who wanted to come into the United States to come in, you'd still have to have a checkpoint. So open borders now is not a real policy. So why are you advocating something that's not a real policy? Nobody is going to vote for a candidate who says they want to kill white people. Nobody is going to vote for a candidate who says, when I come into office, I'm going to kill all the white people. No one's going to vote for that. And the Black Panthers never said anything like that. And so maybe Our job should be to educate people about why the war on the black people in the United States and the war against the oppressed black nation hurts all workers, why it is in our interest to struggle against racism in the prison industrial complex, why it's in our interest to support black nationalism. But these people don't do that. No, white people do have it too good. They should have killed white people. I mean, these people are disgusting. They're utterly disgusting. And if you won't join their utterly disgusting contest, they're like trying to one-up each other and how idiotic and stupid they can be, right? You work very hard to show that Marxists are an important part of American history, that all the progressive reforms, women's right to vote, labor unions, all of these things were won through class struggle. And Marxists are an important part of history. And they're like, no, Marxism hates America. I want to destroy this. It's like, God, they don't want us to win. They just want to do their little woke performance technique. That's all they want to do. You know, that's all these people want to do is they want to put on this I have a bigger woke dick than you performance art. I'm more ridiculous than you are. It's like they take a ridiculous position like open borders, and it'll be like, you know, one of them will be like, I'm for complete open borders now. It'll start out with a sensible position, like they're for legalization of the undocumented workers. I'm for legalization of the undocumented workers. You know, I'm for full legalization. Well, that's not enough. No, I'm not for just for full legalization of the undocumented workers. I'm for open borders now. And then someone else says, yeah, well, I'm for open borders now and murder all white people. Yeah, well, I'm for open borders now, murder all white people, and burn 90% of America to the ground. Yeah, well, I'm for open borders now, kill all white people, burn all of America to the ground, and take a shit on all religious symbols. Yeah, well, I mean, they just sit there and one-up each other and how dumb they can be. Some of us actually take this seriously and would like to actually build a movement that could actually win people over, that these people don't want to do that. Danny Haifong and Luna Oy and these shitheads, they just sit there trying to one-up each other and how offensive they can be and how many woke points they can get for being idiots. For being idiots. They just sit here. And then they always sit like, oh, we're on the brink of fascism. Fascism's about to come for America. Well, you're helping. Yeah, you're helping. Geez, what do you expect people to do? You get on there and you say you want to kill all white people, and then you're surprised there's an upsurge of white nationalism? I mean, you get on there and you say, you say, oh my God, there's all this anti-immigrant bigotry among white workers. Yeah, well, you're on there saying that you want complete open borders and no checkpoints at the borders. You know, I mean, you're shocked that there's a surge of right-wing nationalism. You're saying you want to literally destroy the country. These people are the best friends Donald Trump and white supremacist elements have ever had. These people are like, should be paid by these people. I spent my whole life trying to explain socialism in sensible, rational terms. I spent my whole life winning people to socialist politics, trying to get people to understand what Marxism is actually about, showing people how China raised millions of people out of poverty with socialism, how Russia and the Soviet Union was our ally against the Nazis. And these people just sit there and they just do this adolescent woke temper tantrum. They just sit there and have this adolescent woke temper tantrum. No, I hate the world. I hate America. I hate white people. I hate straight people. I hate cisgender people. Kill them all. It's disgusting. It's utterly disgusting. It is disgusting. Some people actually take this seriously, you fucking pieces of shit. You know, we actually take this seriously. And we have spent years studying Marxism, trying to actually build a movement that could actually take power. We spent years trying to actually make this stuff coherent. And you sit there and have your little adolescent temper tantrum and get rewarded for it with clicks and likes and shares while conditions in the country get worse and worse and worse every day. People are dying of opioids. People are dying. You know, people, there's more wars, and they just sit there doing their little woke performance art. Look how woke I am. Look how woke I am. You know, I mean, you know, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. Some of us take this fucking seriously. And these people, they just sit there. Oh, I want to kill all white people. Oh, I want to murder all white people. I want to burn the country down. I hate America. Yeah, I want this country to be poorer. I want everyone to be poor. They just sit there. They are like just a stereotype. What I've spent my whole life trying to explain to people, Marxism is not. They do that because it gets them likes and shares. Where do you think all the Patreon money that rewards them for acting this way comes from? Why do you think these people always get promoted by mainstream media? Why? Because they're helpful. They're helpful in inflaming a culture war. Right now, many working people in middle America are seeing their wages go down, seeing their living standards going down, and then they are hearing Ron DeSantis tell them, oh, that's because the communists in China are doing this. You see, communism is about making everyone poorer. And then they listen to Danny Haiphong, and he says, yeah, communism is about making everyone poorer. I want to kill all white people. I hate white people. And he's like a walking expression of proof of that, right? If I was Ron DeSantis, I would pay Danny Haiphong. I would pay Luna Oy. And you know the worst thing about this is these people are both Asian, and they hate Asian people. And that is like shocking to me, right? You know, I mean, and you know, it's not for me to say. You can look at some of the stuff that others have exposed, but like the hate crimes that were happening against Asian Americans, a lot of them were being done by African Americans. Danny Haiphong denied that to get woke points. Like his own people, Asians like him, are being beaten up on the street, and it's African Americans largely who are committing these hate crimes. There's obviously a big problem with anti-Asian bigotry being pushed in the black community. And Danny Haiphong denied it. He actually denied it because he would get him woke points. Is that not disgusting? Right? So he's from a marginalized group that's under attack. And it's under attack. And a lot of the people committing hate crimes against people who look like him are of one race. And he thinks, oh, but right now it's trendy to say Black Lives Matter. I mean, Kamala Harris is vice president. BLM is on CNN. I'm going to deny what's happening to my own people, and then maybe I can get more likes and shares. These people are disgusting. They have no interest in actually seeing socialism come to the United States. They have no interest in building any real socialist organization. They have no interest in doing anything like that. It's an internet grift. And the people handing out the money, are the U.S. imperialists. They're the U.S. imperialists. That's who's handing out the money. It's the U.S. imperialists are handing out the money. And then, of course, you know how you get a lot of points? You know the best way to get points with these, you know, with the U.S. imperialists, the best way to get boosted in the algorithms? Talk shit about me. Talk shit against me. Why is the American RT reporter, why is he actually a secret Nazi? Right? Why is the American RT reporter guy, why is he actually, secretly the Grand Wizard of the KKK? Why is Caleb evil? Why is Caleb a satanic sociopath cult leader? Right? I mean, and you notice that, right? If you tweet out, patriotic socialism is just Nazism, your tweet will get bumped up like you wouldn't believe. You think that's accidental? Have you looked at the Twitter revelations? Have you looked at the Twitter revelations, folks? So it's like these people are being incentivized to give our ideology and our movement a bad name. That's what they're doing, right? And they are going out of their way to fulfill every anti-communist stereotype. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And yes, they hate the working class. They don't want to recruit the working class to be socialists. They want the working class to all be Trumpers because they're racist. It's just childish. They don't want to actually save America from the crisis it's in. They openly want this country to fall apart. And I'm sorry, when people are facing their country falling apart, when people are facing driving down living standards, they fight back. And they have made it their life's work to make sure that when they do fight back, the only people who lead them, are Trumpers. That's what they want. They don't want there to be a progressive labor movement. They don't want there to be an upsurge of working class resistance to U.S. imperialism. They don't want that. What they want is for there to be, them to get woke points. They want to make more money on Patreon. They want to get their videos to get more likes and shares. And they don't give a fuck about actually the crisis we're facing. It's shocking to me. It's utterly shocking to me how they're doing this. And of course, attack me, right? Attack the American RT reporter guy, right? I mean, I'm guilty of being white. I am white, folks. Maybe you didn't know this. I'm white. I'm guilty of being white. And yes, I support Russia. I support Russia in its fight against U.S. imperialism, and it's a fight against the Ukrainian NATO proxies. Yes, I do. I support Russia. I'm on Russia's side. So please come after me. Join in with the FBI and the CIA and the U.S. imperialists and try to destroy my reputation. These people are garbage. These people are garbage. And I just wanted to get that off of my chest. But, I mean, we have a job to do. We have a job to do here in the United States. And I have been taking that job seriously for years. Learning how to explain Marxist concepts in a way that they make sense to people. That's another thing, right? I'll just throw this out there since we're just talking about these different things. Since we're just throwing these things out there. Why is it that if you want Marxism explained in very clear language, you got to go back and read William Z. Foster and Gus Hall books? Why is it that if you actually want to understand Marxism in clear language, you have to read old stuff? And why is it that in academia, there's all these philosophical wankery texts? If you go to Barnes & Noble and look for books about Marxism, you're going to find Slavoj Žižek, you're going to find Elaine Badiou, and you're going to find, Althusser, and you're going to find all this stuff that doesn't make any coherent sense. That if you gave it to someone in your community, you gave it to one of your coworkers, you gave it to someone in your neighborhood, you gave it to someone you went to school with, they wouldn't know what heads or tails what to make of it. And that's what people think Marxism is. They get, this thing about, the existential struggle of modern man and the contradictions of the cultural, Do you think that that's how the Black Panthers organized? They walked into neighborhoods and they're like, man, existential contradictions of Jean Paul Sartre and modern man and postmodernism are like up against the contradictions of the patriarchal white male society. Do you think that's what the Black Panthers did? Do you think that's how the Black Panthers explained Marxism to people? Do you really think that's how the Black Panthers would explain Marxism to people? Do you think that in the 1930s, when William Z. Foster and Gus Hall were, building labor unions, you think they went into factories and said, all right, everyone, you've suffered under the dialectical, historical, materialist oppression of the... No. But these people, if you go into these circles, these woke synthetic left circles, they walk around with these, these existentialist, postmodern, wankery philosophy books, right? And they think they're smart. And you know what? These people don't understand those books either. They don't. They don't understand those books either. But they just feel all smart. Look at me. I got an A in my college philosophy class because I understand. It has nothing. They're not explaining it in language people can understand. That's why do people watch these streams? They watch them because I explain this stuff coherently. When people ask me a question, I give a coherent answer to it. But it's a game of the emperor has no clothes. No one understands. They don't understand what they're talking about, and they sit there and they go out of their way to make people not understand it. They walk around the contradictions of the contradictions, and half of them don't even know what the word neoliberal means. Neoliberal does not mean moderate Democrat. Neoliberal refers to an economic system. Neoliberalism, it's an economic theory. The idea that government shouldn't really play much of a role in the economy. It's Alan Greenspan, Milton Friedman. It's the economic theories of neoliberalism. But these people, they don't know that. but they don't want to look it up. They don't want to admit they don't know it. So they start walking around. Why are you being so neoliberal today, Caleb? And it's like, how am I being neoliberal? They don't know what the words mean. But it's too much of a highfalutin, dick-waving woke contest for them to even admit they don't know what the words mean. So they use the words wrong. My favorite one, this is my favorite one. The word reactionary, right? In Marxism, we understand that there are progressive forces that want to advance and have reforms. There's revolutionary forces that want to move towards some kind of revolution. And then there are forces that want to go backward. And those forces that want to move backward, they are reactionaries, right? The forces that are trying to roll back historical progress, they're reactionaries. But during Occupy Wall Street, I would watch all these idiots, all these trust fund, middle-class, woke kids walking around, and you would argue with them, and they'd go, stop being so reactionary. They think reactionary means reacting to someone else. No, that would be reactive. They don't even know what a basic Marxist term reactionary means. But yet they don't try to explain it. They walk around. They don't know what these words actually mean. They don't know what neoliberal means. They don't know what contradiction means. They don't know what reactionary means. They never bother to look up what these words actually mean. They just walk around like this, trying to use the words so that they can sound smart, just like the Slavoj Žižek book that they bought the other day. Look at me. Oh, stop being so neoliberal. Try to be more neoconservative. I went to the bathroom and the contradictions of the toilet seat were up against the contradictions of my pants. And, and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what these words actually mean. They haven't struggled to actually understand any of these concepts. It's just all a big wank. It's all a big wank. The emperor has no clothes. It's all a big wank. That's all it is for these people. And they're walking around going, yeah, my cousin was a neoliberal. He voted for Hillary Clinton. Oh, you're getting mad at me? I told you to stop being so reactionary. We know what Lenin said about reactionaries. Lenin was always executing people for reacting too much to other people. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. They have no clue what the Marxist buzzwords that they're using actually mean. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. And they just walk around using, college Marxist philosophy words because it makes them feel all good about themselves, one-upping each other in outrageous, ridiculous positions, like kill all white people, open borders now, forcibly deport every white person from America, land back, give the land back, got to deport the black people too, right? We need land back for the Native Americans. I mean, it's like they go out of their way to take ridiculous positions, hating the American working class, hating the flag, I hear you. Hating the American flag. Just how out of touch with reality can they sound? How many buzz phrases and buzzwords can they use? They don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, it makes me angry. Yes, exactly. It makes me genuinely angry because I am somebody who takes this seriously. I take this seriously. I'm actually trying to build an organization. And no, the organization I'm trying to build is not the Answer Coalition, trying to be king of the protest cage. I'm not trying to be Brian Becker. I got the permit. What? I got the permit. You going to mess with me? I got the permit, man. The Answer Coalition, they reserved this is true. After the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, March 19th, 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq. The Answer Coalition, I kid you not, the Answer Coalition reserved the permits for March 19th for the next 20 years. So that if anyone wanted to have a protest on March 19th, they had to go through them. They're the king of the protest cage. It is ridiculous. So yes, I am trying to build a real organization. And no, I'm not interested in becoming king of the protest cage. I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in actually getting to the masses. and actually communicating a form of socialism that average Americans could actually be won over to. No, I'm not just trying to have a little baby tantrum and tell average Americans how evil they are so I can feel all woke inside. No, I'm not trying to get woke points for ripping or for taking a dump on the American flag. I'm actually trying to build socialist and anti-imperialist politics in a way that people could actually be won over to them, for Christ's sakes. And so they then go out of their way to call me a Nazi for doing that. How am I a Nazi for trying to win average Americans to anti-racism? How is that a Nazi thing to do? I mean, it's unbelievable, these people. Oh, he must be a Nazi. Everyone knows the flags are Nazi. Everybody knows the flags are Nazi. Okay. I mean, it infuriates me, right? And I mean, and it's like I'm doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm taking seriously the job that they have also taken on and are blowing off and grifting. I'm doing what these people are supposed to be doing. I'm actually developing Marxism and trying to build an organization that will get the broad masses of people and win them to understand that Russia and China are our allies, that black nationalism is our allies, that we could have a new America with jobs and healthcare and education for all by breaking out of this imperialist system. And because I take the job seriously, they say I'm a Nazi. My friend, Nazis don't go around trying to win American workers to anti-racism. Nazis go around promoting racism. Nazis don't go around promoting Abraham Lincoln. Nazis go around promoting the Confederacy. I'm sorry, did they sleep through Charlottesville? In Charlottesville, were all the Nazis there rallying to defend Abraham Lincoln? No, they were rallying to defend the Confederacy. So if I'm always talking about how great Abraham Lincoln was, that would put me on the opposite side of the Nazis. On top of that, if I was a Nazi, why would I always go around promoting the role of Marxists in defeating slavery? This is my favorite. How in the world is it a Nazi thing to do to go around promoting the role of Marxists in organizing and standing with abolitionists like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman in defeating slavery and the Confederacy? There is nothing more not Nazi than doing that. Nazis hate Marxism. Nazis hate non-white people. Nazis hate Abraham Lincoln. Nazis support the Confederacy. Like, promoting the role of Abraham Lincoln and his alliance with Marxists in defeating slavery is about the most non-Nazi thing you can do. But these people, because I'm not them, I'm not a dumb fuck. I'm not on there going, oh, I hate America. America's racist. Because I'm not playing those games. These people have decided they have to go out of their way and smear me. And at the end of the day, they're mad at me for doing what they won't do. Because at the end of the day, they're con artists. They're hustlers, and they know it. Brian Becker is a protest hustler. He doesn't care if we ever have socialism in the United States. He just wants to hustle and make money and grift off of his little protest hustle. He and the Partnership for Civil Justice and all that shit, right? It's a hustle. It's a scam. And Danny Haiphong, he doesn't care if average Americans ever get won over to socialism. He hates average Americans, right? He just wants to perform on the internet, right? But I take my job seriously, and I embarrass them. I embarrass them because I'm doing the work that they refuse to do. It's just too hard for them. Oh, I don't want to go talk to the ignorant hillbillies. I just want to condemn them and get money from liberals. Oh, I don't want to convince people that are racist that racism is against their interests. I just want to condemn them and get points on my tweets condemning them. They don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to do the hard work, and they see me actually doing the hard work, and it embarrasses them. It embarrasses them. And like I said, they don't even understand the ideology they espouse. You know, walk up to one of these people and say, what is dialectical materialism, right? I've explained dialectical materialism on these streams anytime. People shoot me a super chat. Hey, Caleb, what's dialectical materialism? Boom, I answer it. Try that with Danny sometime. See if he could answer that. And he would say, they won't be able to answer it. They won't be able to answer it. Right? Go up to Brian Becker sometime. You're at a protest in Washington, D.C. Hey, Brian Becker, what's dialectical materialism? Well, you see, we actually do stuff. We organize protest. We're not into all the books and like knowing things or whatever. They don't know what they're talking about. They're grifters. They're hustlers. They're con artists. And that's why the system pumps them up. And that's why the system pumps them up. And it's infuriating to me. It's infuriating to me. And, you know, like, I mean, I don't know what more to say about it, right? We started out on here talking about how these are rough times. These are rough times for everyone, and these are hard times to be alive and all of that. Look, I'm at the point, I'll just say this, right? And it needs to be said. You're with me or against me. I'm not chasing after anybody. I am not chasing after anybody. At this point, it's very clear there is a full-on deep state operation against me. People have gone out of their way to run my name through the mud, to destroy my reputation, to accuse me of all kinds of things. And if you can't say, you know what, when they come for Caleb, I'm with Caleb. If you want to find a way, well, I think they're both right. You know, well, Caleb, yeah, sure. You know, like the other day, right? This unholy Rome dipshit, right? This guy, I don't even know. I mean, I don't know who he is. He's unholy Rome. I just see him randomly on Twitter announcing that anyone who thinks that Marx and Lincoln had anything to do with each other is retarded or something like that. And so I post like proof, like many articles about Marx and Lincoln's relationship, about the role of communists in defeating slavery, about August Willich, about Joseph Wedemeyer, about how Karl Marx wrote for the New York Tribune, all of this. I post this, and he goes, oh, it was just one letter. Like, no, it wasn't one letter. It was one letter and one brigadier general in the Union Army and one infantry regiment from Ohio led by Joseph Wedemeyer and one newspaper in New York City, the New York Tribune, the Republican newspaper owned by Horace Greeley. Like, Marx and Lincoln were allies. Yeah, Lincoln wasn't a communist, right? You know, but they were allies. And he can't look at that and go, oh, I didn't know about that. Interesting. No, he can't admit that I happen to know U.S. history and he doesn't. No, he then responds and says that I'm a Nazi. He says, you know what the difference is between patriotic socialism and national socialism? Not a damn thing. Well, I can think of a few differences. Number one, Nazis support the Confederacy. And it's like these people. And so he comes at me with this stuff. Just because I know more American history than he does, just because I take this seriously, and I happen to know more than him, he knows that everything American is evil, and Lincoln's like American and stuff, so I'm against America. That's all he knows. He's just a fucking woke idiot, okay? And I've actually studied U.S. history, and yes, Lincoln was bad in many, many ways, but there is there's a history, right? Marxists made a strategic alliance with Lincoln in order to carry out the Second American Revolution and defeat slavery. These people haven't done any of the work, right? And then I come along, they can't just disagree with me. I have to be a Nazi, I have to be Hitler. And then these people come along and they want to be like, well, you're both right. How are we both right? He called me an idiot for knowing a historical fact. How are we both right? How are we both right? I'm talking about a historical fact here. You not only denied a historical fact, you called me an idiot for believing this historical fact, and then you called me a Nazi. I'm sorry, how is this a matter of opinion? How are we both right? We're not both right. So if you support unholy Rome, get out of here, right? He owes me an apology. I know American history. I know the role that Karl Marx played in the Civil War. I've actually read Karl Marx's articles for the New York Tribune, the Republican Party newspaper. I know this stuff. And I'm so sorry I know more than you. Why is it a crime to actually know U.S. history? Why is it a crime to actually take things seriously? I'm so sorry I'm not stupid. I'm so sorry for not being stupid like you. I'm so sorry that I have political understanding that's a little bit deeper than America's racist. America's racist. I have actual knowledge of the history of the Marxist movement. I know about the role of Marxists in the defeat of slavery. I've read Karl Marx's articles for the New York Tribune. I've read about Joseph Wedemeyer and August Willich and the role and how there were Marxists in the Union Army. I'm so sorry for actually knowing something and not being a dumb fuck grifter like you. And anyone who thinks this is both sides, who thinks it's okay for people to attack me because I know shit, get lost. Seriously. I don't need your views and I don't need your likes, right? If you think it's okay for them to call me a Nazi because I've read a book, get lost. I'm so tired of these people. I know, and I'm with you. I'm not interested in leftist unity. Leftist unity means I'd have to sit down with unholy Rome and negotiate about, and negotiate somehow. Oh, we can't talk about Lincoln. We can't talk about, I would have to negotiate with these people that are idiots. These people are just idiots. And they have no intention. Danny doesn't want to recruit. He openly hates the American working class. Well, that's great, but the American working class is the only working class we got, Danny. So how are you going to recruit him? Oh, he doesn't want to recruit him. He just wants to grift money. He just wants to grift money, right? That's all they want to do. They just want to grift money. And thank you, Gala. I do appreciate it. They just want to grift money. It's just a woke performance. I hate America. Look, I super hate America. Yeah, well, I super duper hate America. Well, I super duper triple hate America. Good for you. That's great. I'm actually trying to understand this. I'm actually trying to get American people to understand that Russia and China are not our enemy. Our enemy is Wall Street. And Danny openly goes around saying that, oh, yeah, the American working class, they are the exploiters. If you listen to Danny's logic, if you listen to the arguments he makes, people in middle America should hate Russia. People in America should hate China because he argues that the American people are the exploiters. They are the enemy, right? So in a way, he's arguing, yeah, average Americans should hate China. They should hate Russia because it's in their economic interest to, that's what they're arguing. I mean, it's like he's doing the work of these people for it. It's like if they didn't think that it was in their interest, he's going around saying, yes, American imperialism is good for you, Russia and China and the working class, it's shocking. It's really, really shocking. And seriously, I am at the point where, I have a job, I pay my own bills, and I got people who want to work with me and take the work that I'm doing seriously. And if you can't wrap your minds around how, no, we're not both right. When I talk, people who say I'm a dumb idiot for thinking Marx and Lincoln were allies. If you can't understand that, no, we're not both right. There's all kinds of documented evidence on my side. And, well, we're both right. No, if you think we're both right, get lost. You know what I mean? Because We're not both right. And we are never going to be a serious movement in this country. Never. We will never be a serious movement in this country if our message is one of hostility and hatred for average Americans. We will never be a serious movement in this country if our message is hatred for white people. And no, we are never going to be a serious movement in this country if we tell people that we want them to have less and be poorer. Never. Never. Never, never, never. We will never be a serious political movement if that is what we go around doing. I'm sorry, we just won't ever be a serious political movement. And so if you want to hold on to this, I don't need to work with you. I want to get the whole thing, folks. I'm not interested in forming a club that might have people from Danny Haifong's fan base in it, might have people from Luna Soy's fan base in it. I'm not interested in that. I'm really not interested in that. I'm interested in forming an organization that can actually win over average Americans. And that means that people like Danny Haifong and Luna Soy got to get out of here. And that means that we'll be smaller, sure. Better, fewer, but better. I'm actually interested in winning average Americans to understand that their enemy is on Wall Street and not in Russia and not in China and not in Venezuela and not in Iran. And that requires us to love the American people, to love them. Love them. As hard as it is. And look, this is a culture that is very toxic, and there's a lot of damaged people walking around and all of that. But it is our job to love the American people. It's our job. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to understand. But, if you love, well, let me put it this way. If you're the head of a company that makes bowling balls, right, and your job is to manufacture and sell bowling balls, do you think that's going to work too well if you hate bowling balls? If your job is to manufacture and sell computers, you're the owner, you're starting a company that's aim is to manufacture and sell computers, how well do you think that's going to go if you hate computers? Not too well. So tell me, as a Marxist living in the United States, your job is to lead the American working class, to oppose imperialism, build socialism. So how are you going to lead the American working class if you hate them? I mean, I'm sorry, but do you aspire to actually lead this country? Do you aspire to actually build a mass movement that could break this country out of imperialism? Or do you just want to do this woke grift on the internet? That's what these people are doing. That's what these people are doing. And it's sad because anti-imperialism is very marginal in the United States. At this point, it's very marginal. There's very few people telling the truth about Russia, very few people telling the truth about China and Venezuela and Iran. Very few people are doing that. And at this point, there's probably more people doing that are on the right than are on the left. There's very, very few people doing that. And because there's so few people doing that, a lot of resources get thrown at anybody who will do it. And that's good on the one hand. But when these people that are having resources thrown at them are intentionally not trying to win, they're just trying to outwoke each other. It's all just a performance. It's all just a big grift. Those resources are being wasted. There is no danger of Danny Haifong ever building a political party that will ever build up a mass base in the country. Ever. There is no danger of a mass movement in the United States made up of white people whose goal is to hate white people ever taking power or becoming serious. Ever. There is no danger of millions of working people going to the polls and voting for a political party that's stated goal is to make them poorer. None. And it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. It really doesn't take a genius Really doesn't take a genius to figure this out. It's pretty basic. I decided to get on this kick. I started out by talking to you all about how we're living in the last days. We're living in hard times. And we are. I mean, these are the last days of American imperialism. This is U.S. capitalism crashing and burning. And part of U.S. capitalism crashing and burning is this radical individualism, where people just think about themselves. They just think about their own short-term gain. They just think about how they can maneuver and grift and make money for themselves. And I just got to tell you that I've never been able to relate to Marxism in that way. Ever. I mean, Marxism has never been that way. And a number of people have come to me and said to me, Caleb, you're putting yourself in too much danger. Just have your YouTube channel, make YouTube videos. That's fine. Do that. Write books here and there, but just don't organize an organization. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how. How do you talk about Marxism and not build a Marxist organization? How do you talk about revolutionary strategy and tactics if you have no intention of ever carrying them out, like Danny? Right? How do you discuss socialism and Marxism, etc., if you have no intention of building a community? I mean, I don't know how to do that. I would not be capable of doing that, right? It's just not possible, right? The only way I know how to relate to this is in the context of building an organization. Now, obviously, we can do it differently, do it smarter, be more strategic in how we do things, etc. But for me, Marxism is always about community. It's always about having comrades. It's always about having an organization. It's always about building a community of solidarity. It's always about engaging in tactics intended to change the world. It's always about spreading the message to people who've never heard it before, winning them to a political line. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's always, always, always been about something you do with other people. So I don't know what it would look like to stop organizing. I honestly don't know what that would look like. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if I didn't have CPI, what would I be doing on these streams? What would I be talking about? The weather? Would I be like reading books out loud to you? Would I be like talking about movies and how the characters are like the bourgeoisie or something? I don't even know what it would look like. Everything related to Marxism, in my view, is about organization, is about actually trying to achieve goals. That's how these things work. So I don't, it is not in my interest. I'll tell you that much. People have made clear to me that continuing to do the organizing work I do, and we're having a conference March 25th, location to be announced as soon as possible. Working out the details still. We're having a conference, and we've got weekly meetings of our organization. I mean, we're continuing to do what we're doing, and I don't know how to stop. I really don't know how to stop. And so I will continue building a community of solidarity. I will continue promoting socialism and anti-imperialist politics. I will continue putting together a coherent revolutionary message, reaching the broad masses of people. I'm going to keep doing that because it's what I know how to do. And if I wasn't doing that, I don't know, maybe I'd be selling insurance. Maybe I would, become a dog walker. I don't know. I don't know. My worldview, my understanding, the way I view myself in relation to others, all of this is tied up in the understanding that we are trying to reach as many people as possible, trying to build a revolutionary movement to change the world. That's what it means to me. And that's what it meant to Marx. That's what it meant to Lenin. That's what it meant to Ho Chi Minh. That's what it meant to Stalin. That's what it meant to all these people. The point of these ideas was to actually put them into practice. The point of these movements was to actually win, right? That's what it means to me. This isn't performance art. This isn't intellectual wankery. The point is to win. The object is to win. And I started out this stream talking about how we're living in the last days. And I think the reason this gets me so fired up is because we're actually living in a time where we could win. We're actually living in a time where the possibility of winning could actually be there. We could actually win. We could actually win. The conditions are ripening. The time we've been waiting for is approaching. But we got to seize the moment. 20 years ago, if you'd have said to Marxists, what if there was a time when polls showed that overwhelmingly Americans were against these wars? They would have jumped up and said, wow, that would have been great. That would be great. Polls 20 years ago, if you'd went to American Marxists and said, what if there was a time when the living standards across America was dropping and 30 to 40% of the American public said they were against capitalism? They'd say, wow, that would be great. What if the time had come when average Americans thought that a secret elite controlled politics? They'd say, wow, that would be great. What if a time had come where, there was so much division in the U.S. ruling class that when one candidate lost the election, his supporters stormed into the U.S. Capitol and had a Capitol riot? They'd say, wow, that would be great. This is the time for us to win. This is the time we've all been waiting for. It's here. Long-term economic crisis, lack of support for capitalism, lack of support for U.S. foreign policy, all the elements that should be us walking onto center stage and becoming the new ruling party, dismantling U.S. imperialism and moving America towards socialism. All of them are here. The only thing that's missing is that the organized political left doesn't have its shit together. Marxists, as a group, don't have their shit together. They don't know what to believe. They don't know what to make of the fall of the Soviet Union. They're too busy having a temper tantrum against the American working class. They're too busy seeing fascism under every rock and peeing their bed every night because they have a nightmare about, people outlawing pornography or something. They're too busy, discovering a new way to be transgender every 3 weeks. They're too busy pointing out that open borders now is actually a racist policy because there's still borders even though they're open. So they're ultra revolutionary. They don't want borders at all. They don't just want open borders. I mean, they're too busy outwoking each other. If we could just get our shit together. We could just get our shit together. This could be the moment. And that's why it frustrates me so much. And that's why I get so fired up about this, because we could actually be winning right now. But in order to do that, we'd have to get our shit together. So on that note, folks, let's do the roll call. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. And then from there, I'll start answering the super chat questions. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Names and locations. All right, we got Ryan in California. Welcome, Ryan. We got Temple City, California. Andrew from Kanad, from Mississippi, JT24. Lumpia Logic is killing someone. West Virginia. Oh, sorry about that. West Virginia. John Whitty in Houston. From Mexico. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Ryan in Kansas City. Colin in Greensboro. LA. Ryan from the Philippines. Edwin Fever. Richmond, Virginia. Nate on vacation. John McCarthy in Chicago. Jenny in Cincinnati. KCMO. David Rennie. CAC. Kieran from San Diego. Kentucky. Alan. Gala in Texas. Welcome, welcome. James Fouquet from Thailand. Elizabeth in Portland. Bob Troy in New York. Bendu from American Autopsy. Gil in Los Angeles. Mindanao to Midwest. Joe in Maryland. Jim in Harrisburg. San Diego County. St. David's, Bermuda. Olympia Logic, Mindanao to Midwest. Upper Peninsula, Michigan. St. David's, Bermuda. San Diego County. There we go. Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Tyler in Missouri. My favorite English teacher. Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati. Very good. Cedar Park, Texas. Philip Mack. Very good. Cleveland, Pirate Alex. Yonatan Mahari in England. Very, very good. Lori in your computer screen. Welcome, Lori. Good to have you so close by. All right. Alan in South Korea. There we go. City skipped my name intentionally last time. State, I don't care, but disrespectful. All right. Under socialism, your only pronouns should be comrade. Aw. There we go. Mike in Las Vegas. Oh, thank you, Tyler. Thank you. Caracas, Venezuela. Jose Gonzalez. Brighton in Vancouver. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Ishmael in Los Angeles. Very good. Very good. All righty. So now we have to answer the super chats. And if other people have more super chat questions, by all means, shoot them my way. First super chat question is about the trial of David Irving. Well, I don't know much about it, but my understanding is that David Irving was a Holocaust revisionist. He's one of these right-wing British historians who questions the Holocaust, is my understanding. And that I believe it was a defamation suit, right? Like somebody wrote something negative about him, and so then he wrote back, and they argued he defamed them. And it was like somehow he got sued. It was in Britain, I believe the trial was. And in Britain, it is not illegal to deny the Holocaust, I understand, right? European, so he wasn't on trial for denying the Holocaust. He was on trial for defamation or something. I don't remember the details of the trial of David Irving, honestly. There was a movie about it at one point. I never watched the movie, but I had a friend who watched it. And my friend told me that he watched this movie about the trial of David Irving. And the whole time he was thinking, okay, like this is one like crank right-wing British historian, right? And he's up against the Anti-Defamation League, like the whole British and American establishment, like huge multi-million-dollar foundations went up against this guy. And the way the movie portrayed it, it was almost like it was somehow an underdog story. And it's like, this is like one like far-right Nazi sympathizing historian. And, it's like the whole establishment, they like, people said it would be like Mike Tyson beating up a 5-year-old, right? Because it's just like, this guy had no chance with his legal team and all of that. And it was like the whole establishment was going after him. And that often that's how woke stuff is. People don't get it. It's like, okay, some old man in the middle of Texas said something racist. So, all of Twitter gangs up on him, and like celebrities are tweeting against him and stuff. It's like, oh, wow. Good for you. You got him. You got him. This old man who's senile and can't defend himself. And it's like we all gang up on him. And it's like maybe what he said was really awful. He said something racist or homophobic or whatever, but it's like, oh, wow, we got him, But I don't know. The other thing I will say about David Irving, I have not read his work. Obviously, I'm not interested in Holocaust revisionism or Holocaust denial. I mean, the Holocaust is a historical fact as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and anyone who's trying to question it is not doing good things. But one thing I have heard is that David Irving started out his work. He wasn't starting out defending the Nazis. He started out writing anti-Soviet and anti-Russian screeds. He wrote a book called The Hungarian Tragedy, which was all about how in 1956, this uprising in Hungary against the Soviet government was so amazing and righteous, but it was betrayed by the commies, by the Reds, by the soft liberals, and that he was just an anti-communist, right? And that's one thing about a lot of these hard right people. We're not talking about conservatives. We're talking about like hard right, like people that are neo-Nazis. A lot of them just started out as professional anti-communists. George Lincoln Rockwell, the American Nazi Party, every speech starts out with how much he hates communism. Communism is just so bad. And then it starts in about Jews, and then it starts into the Nazi worldview. And that the basis of a lot of Nazism is just anti-communism. David Duke, the white supremacist, he wrote an entire book called The Secret Behind Communism. It's all about, wow, you hate communism. Well, communism is actually by the Jews, right? And that a lot of these people, it's like assumed that you're just a bloodthirsty anti-Soviet, anti-communist. And then they try to tell you that communism is some kind of ethnic expression of Jews. And then based on that, they try to tell you Hitler was good, and that, anti-communism is the basis of a lot of this stuff. And that's why it's shocking to me that a lot of these leftists, they have the same understanding. Right? I mean, except they think all communists are fascists, but they believe the exact same thing about the Soviet Union, the exact same thing about Mao, the exact same thing about Cuba. They have the exact same interpretation of history. It's just, well, they're not real socialists. It's like, no, the root U.S. society at this point is founded on a lie. There is a lie that holds U.S. society together. If there's one big lie that holds America together, it's this. Communism has never worked anywhere. That is the lie. Because communism turned the Soviet Union into a superpower. Communism made China the second largest economy in the world. Communism has lifted millions of people out of poverty. Communism has made Cuba a much better and more industrialized country than most countries in the Caribbean. Communism has been very successful. But U.S. society is held together by the lie that somehow everywhere you've ever tried to have socialism, it's only led to things getting worse. And the fake left believes this. Vosh believes this. BreadTube believes this. And the right wing, they all believe it. Everyone believes this. And it is so obviously false if you just consume basic economic data. The Soviet Union was not an economic disaster. It had huge rates of economic growth. China has not been an economic disaster. Cuba has not been an economic disaster. So many countries were industrialized, got modern medical systems, modern education systems, modern industry and electrification from socialism. But U.S. society, all political discourse in the United States centers around this notion that nowhere has communism ever been successful. And fascism is based on that too, right? Well, you really want to hate commies. That's most fascism in the United States is just John Birch society stuff, right? It's communism is evil and all the American government are all communists. It's like, no, the American government are not all communists. So, it's like, they thought Eisenhower was a communist. Why? Because his brother was a member of a church that had supported the Spanish Republic against Franco. That was the basis, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Dwight Eisenhower, the Republican president, he had a brother, and his brother was a member of a church, and that church had opposed Franco and fascism in Spain. So therefore, Dwight Eisenhower was a communist. I mean, that's like stupid. That's like stupid. But it's like, but he's bad. Dwight Eisenhower's bad, and everyone knows everything bad is communist. So there you go. There you go. Political analysis of mainstream movies, but no Hammer, right? So is that MC Hammer? Can I talk about MC Hammer? Can't touch this. No, I'm just kidding. No, but no, mainstream movies like Hammer are not mainstream movies. I'll just tell you that much, Max. They are not mainstream movies. Hammer films, that's obscure, classic film. They're classics now. I mean, they're not classics. They're, I don't know. I don't even know I put them in the category of like pulp fiction. They're like pulp fiction on screen. But anyway, mainstream analysis of movies. A lot of movies nowadays, many movies I've seen, they glorify criminality and they glorify wealth. There used to be a law that you could not show someone get away with a crime in a movie. Did you know this? They used to have a law on the books that in a movie, if someone committed a crime, they had to get caught and get arrested. It was a law. It was like a law. Because they believed if people went to the movies and they saw someone commit a crime and get away with it, they would then go out and commit crimes. Well, they don't have that law anymore. Most of those laws have been overturned, but one of the laws, we think about, they used to have laws against explicit sex in movies, etc. But one of the laws was you couldn't show people getting away with crimes in movies. Nowadays, there's many movies about people getting away with crimes. I think of so many of the movies that I've seen, and it's like a group of people, they start committing crimes and they start living it up and making huge amounts of money. And then something goes wrong and some of them go to jail or something, but then it all kind of works out in the end or something, right? The Wolf of Wall Street. And what was the one movie? I can't even remember the name of this movie. It was about like women who went on dates with Wall Street guys. I can't even remember the name of that movie. And they like had a ring of like, they were like sex workers or something. And there was that movie. I can't remember the name of that movie. And yeah, so many movies are about that now. It's about like people becoming criminal and making lots of money, and then something goes wrong, but it all kind of works out in the end. It was all worth it or something like that. Yeah, it's a little bit strange. It's a really common theme I've seen in movies lately. Crime pays. Yeah. And it's really common in movies nowadays. And what else? I mean, you asked me it's just random question about mainstream films. I will say modern horror films are unwatchable. They're just gore. And look, I've said this before, Max, but I'll say it again. Gross. Grossness is a cheap imitation of what good art should do. Right? If you want to scare somebody, we'll start out with horror films, but it applies to many other genres. If you want to scare somebody, come up with a very elaborate, scary plot, right? Edgar Allan Poe, the master of writing a good horror story. There's others, right? Who was the guy who wrote about Cthulhu? What was his name? The science fiction horror writer, H.P. Lovecraft. These were smart guys who came up with very elaborate, well thought out, scary stories. Well, if you want to cheat, all you have to do is come up with gore. Gore is much easier to come up with, and gore is horrifying, right? If you're grossed out by gore, you go, ugh. And so you get the same effect, but you don't have to do the work. It's a cheap imitation of horror, is gore. And the same goes for comedy, right? Again, clever comedians work very hard to come up with very funny jokes that make you laugh. And they work very hard to study why people find it funny, to get their timing, their comic timing exactly right. right? I mean, being a comedian, I could never be a comedian, right? All right, Soviet cinema, I'll write that down. I could never be a comedian, ever. I could not do that. I like public speaking, but I'm not a good enough public speaker to be a comedian. Politicians speak, preachers speak, but, comedians, I mean, every sentence, every breath is rehearsed. Being a comedian it's really hard work, right? But if you watch a lot of comedy, I mean, I used to like Family Guy, but then I realized that Family Guy was cheating. Instead of making me laugh, they grossed me out. All right. The baby would like beat up the dog and be a fight scene that would go on. There'd be blood and gore, and it's just blood and gore. There'd be gross reference. And they realized, oh, we can gross you out. We don't have to do the hard work of actually making you laugh, because you'll laugh because you're grossed out. It's a cheap imitation of comedy. Gross. And gross is also a cheap imitation of action. Right? Again, come up with a very exciting story. It's very complicated. No, you just gross somebody out. A lot of violence. Right? And that gross is lazy on the part of writers. Right? It's much easier to gross somebody out than to really make them laugh, than to really scare them, than to really fill them with suspense and have them on the edge of seat. Gross is cheap. And I see excessive use of gross in modern films because they don't want to take the actual risk, because it's risk, right? They want a return on their investment. Every movie is like the stock market. Did you know that? The investors, they put the money up and then they get a percentage of what comes back in. It's like a stock. You buy a stock, right? That was the motion picture codes, the Hayes codes. It wasn't an actual law. I didn't know that. It was a self-imposed industry rule. Ah, very good. Well, there you go. I didn't know that, John. Thank you for that information. But yeah, and I see that nowadays. There's excessive use of gross as a stand-in for doing the actual work. And it's not that there aren't smart writers out there. There's a lot more people writing screenplays, having ideas for movies and stuff than ever before. People have computers and people are more creative than they used to be, But taking a new idea, there's a risk, right? If somebody comes up with a really funny movie, there's a good chance that people won't get it. I mean, there's a good chance that, the humor just won't work. The producers, there's I mean, this is a little old, but it's very mainstream, right? There was a movie in the 1960s called The Producers. And I watched it when the VHS tape when I was a kid, and I died laughing. It was really funny. And they ended up making a Broadway musical out of it and stuff. It's hilarious. But at the time they made it, it bombed. Mel Brooks lost. I believe it didn't do very well. The reason being that it's a really clever plot. Basically, it's that these two Hollywood producers, there's two Broadway like theater producers, and they're scam artists. And so they figure they want to make a play that will close on opening night so they can keep all the money. That's the idea. They'll make a play that is so bad that it will close on opening night, and then they can keep all the money. Right? It's like a scam. They're going to make a play that is so bad that they can keep the money. And so they're thinking, how can we find a play that is so bad, that is just so bad that we can make all the money? So they find an old Nazi, like some Nazi who's like in hiding, from World War II. They find a Nazi, and the play is called Springtime for Hitler. And it's a pro-Nazi musical. It's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And they assume that it'll be so offensive to everybody to have a Nazi musical that it'll flop. Right. And it's a commentary on, it's pretty clever. It's a brilliant satire. Right. And they find this like crazy hippie to play Hitler, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks, Zero Mostel. It's brilliant. Right. At the time they made the movie, though, people didn't think it was funny, because World War II, there were a lot of people who'd lived through World War II that were still alive, and people watched it and they were uncomfortable with it. It was too edgy. right? You couldn't make jokes about World War II because World War II was still in people's minds. This was the 60s. World War II happened in the 40s. It wasn't that long ago. And it didn't work, but it survived. Decades later, it became popular because now we can laugh about, stuff that happened in the past, but you couldn't laugh about it then. And it showed, it aged well, but at the time they made the movie, it didn't go over too well. And I think that's certainly amusing. And then they ended up remaking it into a movie, into another Broadway play. And then they made it into a movie again with Will Ferrell. It was, people were ready to laugh. People just weren't ready for it when it first aired because World War II was, it was too fresh in people's memory. One thing that in the original movie, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I died laughing when I saw this. I had no idea. I just got the VHS tape from the public library. I put it in my VHS tape player. I had no idea what I was going to watch. And I remember there's one scene, they've just met with this Nazi playwright about his play or whatever, about Springtime for Hitler, his play. And so they're walking down the street, Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, and they're walking down the street and you only see the upper half of them, right? You only see like their faces, right? And they're walking. And Gene Wilder's character turns to Zero Mostel and he says, I understand that we need his play because we need a play that will flop, and we need a bad play. He's like, of course. And he says, but do we really have to wear his armband in public? And then it pulls out and the two of them are walking down the street in New York City wearing Nazi armbands. Why is that funny? I don't know. It's brilliant though. I remember I saw that and I just died laughing. That was the funniest moment in the movie. It's like, do we really have to wear his armband? I thought it was hilarious. So there you go. I hope that's enough of an answer for you there, Max. I see a lot of films glorifying theft, and I see a lot of films that are using gross as a substitute. And the point I was making before, I'll just say this, is the reason that they use gross as a substitute is because of the fact that it's easy. It's not as much of a risk, right? If you actually come up with a clever joke, it might be like The Producers. It may just not work, right? If you come up with a very scary thing, it may not work. That in order to come up with very good art, you have to take risks, right? Good art requires a risk. And those investors, they don't want the risk. That's the issue. Those investors don't want to take the risk, and that's the problem, right? And that's why they say the capitalist market. Oh, capitalism is always leading to great innovations. No, it's not. Right? That's one of the problems of monopolistic stagnation. Exactly. They don't like risks, and that's why they make the same movie over and over and over again. It's better to have the movie just kind of do okay than to take the risk of doing something inventive that could be amazing or could be a flop. When Star Wars was made, right? George Lucas, that was a huge risk. For Fox, 20th Century Fox to make Star Wars. No one had ever made a movie like that before, right? A cowboy movie in space, which is basically what Star Wars is. It's a cowboy movie in space. It's written like a cowboy movie. It's got themes of fantasy, like Jedi magic and swords, and it's in space, and it was a huge risk, and a number of production companies actually turned it down. But when George Lucas did it, it was a huge risk, and it was amazingly popular because people had never seen anything like it. It was brilliant. Who'd have thought, right? We're going to have Jedi Knights. We're going to pull elements of fantasy. We're going to have dialogue like a cowboy movie, right? They're going to go into a cantina. We don't serve your kind here. It's like a cowboy movie, and it's going to be in outer space. It was brilliant, right? And the audiences all loved it. But it was a huge risk. They don't take risks in Hollywood anymore. One thing I will say is that music is the same. Capitalism kills innovation. Exactly. Oh, what's your problem with Danny Haiphong? Well, roll it back. I talked about it for about an hour. He's he's attacking me and he hates the American working class. And, I'm really tired of people being performatively woke. But there you go. All right. Next question. History of the Taliban. Well, see, in Afghanistan, people were counting with check marks, and the Islamic leaders didn't like it. So they decided to pass a tally ban. A tally ban. No more counting with check marks. A tally ban. I'm just kidding. Is that offensive? Is that an offensive joke? I don't think it is. I don't think it's I don't think that's an offensive joke. I think that's okay. But anyway, no, the Taliban, a lot of people say that the USA funded the Taliban. It's not that simple, right? That the United States backed a number of radical Islamic forces to fight against the People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. And they overthrew the People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. And then the Taliban was like a breakaway from those forces. It's actually it's more complicated than that. The Taliban was like a much more extreme Wahhabi fundamentalist breakaway from the general anti-Soviet, anti-People's Democratic Republic government. And, they came to power in the early 90s. A lot of people don't realize, right? The standard line, the way that we're all taught about the Afghan war, is we're taught that, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan defeated the Soviet Union. That's not what happened, right? A pro-Soviet government took power in Afghanistan. The USA started an insurgency against it. The Soviet Union sent its military to protect that government. And then in the late 80s, the Soviet Union pulled out. But many people don't realize that the People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan lasted until 1993. Did you know that? The People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan lasted until 1993. The Soviet troops were pulled out in 1988. But, so if there wasn't a huge base of support for the People's Democratic Party, they would not have been in power that long. They were in power in 89. They were in power in 90. They were in 91, 92. It wasn't until 1993 that the People's Democratic Republic of Afghanistan ultimately fell. And that shows that there was a huge base of support for them among the population because of the things they were doing, like industrializing, like mobilizing the young people to build roads and, modernizing agriculture and teaching women to read and the literacy campaigns, etc. There's a reason that they were quite popular. They didn't fall until 1993. Now, what's important is the Taliban was not the force that defeated them. It was like a breakaway from them. And yes, they won an award from the UN for their work against the poppy fields, because one of the main ways that the anti-Soviet insurgency in Afghanistan had funded itself was through the smuggling of heroin. And Afghanistan has the ideal climate for poppies, for opium poppies. And so the USA basically arranged with the Secret Service of Pakistan. What is it? What do they call the OSI or something like that? TSI, I forget what they're called. The Secret Service of Pakistan was involved in helping the anti-Soviet forces smuggle heroin. Right? So then the Taliban was this Islamic breakaway from the anti-Soviet forces, and they came in and they crushed the drug trade. And they burned the poppy fields, and they actually were honored by the UN, ISI. That's what it is, ISI. They were honored by the UN for their work against the drug dealers, and they did a very good job of it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that there was some oil pipeline that the USA wanted built through there, and then they weren't going to build it or something. But the one thing I will say about the Taliban is, I was a kid, but I was politically conscious. I remember it was before 9/11 that we suddenly started being told to hate the Taliban. It was before 9/11. You can always tell when a government gets on the American shit list. You can always tell. Because the Taliban, they weren't originally on the American shit list. For a while, the American government was being friendly with them and all of that. And then the pipeline thing happened. And then I remember I was a kid, but my parents listened to NPR. Right? And NPR, that's where the CIA propaganda comes out. All of a sudden, they were mad that the Taliban blew up some statues. Do you remember this? They blew up some ancient Buddhist statues, which, that's shitty, right? Buddhism and history. I'm not defending the Taliban doing that. But all of a sudden it was all over American radio. Oh my God, the Taliban, they blew up these ancient Buddhist statues. That's so offensive. And then we were hearing also the Taliban was persecuting Hindus. They were making Hindus wear like signs that said, I am a Hindu, and they were comparing that to Jewish stars. And all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, no one had ever heard of the Taliban. Everyone had forgotten about Afghanistan. Afghanistan was like this distant memory. It was like a James Bond movie from the World War or the Cold War years. And then all of a sudden, right, I remember it was way before 9/11. They told us the Taliban blew up these Buddhist statues. How dare they? They told us the Taliban are persecuting religious minorities and Hindus. How dare they? And there was this like woke, it wasn't woke, but there was this like media campaign against the Taliban. Suddenly they were bad. And it was because of that oil deal. The oil pipeline, they wouldn't go along with the oil pipeline. And suddenly the Taliban were on the shit list. And then after 9/11, they ended up invading. But, yeah, it wasn't because of 9/11 that we were all supposed to hate the Taliban. No, the Taliban got on the shit list about a year before 9/11. And I remember that. They were on the shit list. So that's kind of amusing. If I'm not mistaken, I remember at the Oscars that year, Steve Martin was the host of the Oscars, and Steve Martin, they had a big statue of the Oscars behind him, and his joke, he said, "Wow, if they had a statue like this in Afghanistan, they would have blown it up already." That was like one of his like one-liners from the Oscars, because we were all being told to hate the Taliban because they blew up the statue. So there you go. All right. I hope that helps you, Johnny Blaze. All right. How did your experiences in Iran and Yemen affect you politically? Oh boy, I could do a whole hour-long stream on that, Gleb. I could talk about that for hours. The main thing is that it forced me to rediscover my Christian faith, and it forced me to take politics seriously. I had always been taught to hate. Let me back this up. Especially since I moved to New York, I had always been taught to hate my background. I'd always been taught to hate the fact that I was from a small town, that I was from a Christian background, that I was white. I had always been taught, that I was from a privileged sector of U.S. society that's reactionary. I was always trying to fit in with other people. And it was in Iran that they pointed out to me that, it's white guys like you from Ohio who hate Iran. It's white guys like you from Ohio who, are evangelical Christians and support Israel. And you being who you are, a white dude from Ohio who supports Iran, supports Venezuela, and supports Cuba, that's really important. No one had ever said that to me. I had always been taught to, as to be a good communist, I had to hate who I was. I had to hate my background. And the Iranians are the ones that pointed out to me, no, actually being a revolutionary anti-imperialist from the background that you're from is actually really important. That was really important for me. And that was a really, really decisive moment. And that really changed how I thought about things, because I had always been very ashamed, and that, I was treated like garbage because of my background. I'll just be honest. I wasn't valuable. There's a lot of tokenism in the communist groups. I wasn't black. I wasn't a transgender Puerto Rican young woman. So I wasn't valuable as a token. And then there is this straight up bigotry. A lot of the people that run the communist groups they hate average Americans, right? They are middle class New Yorkers. They're middle class, elitists. They went to Harvard and Yale. And they think average Americans are all in the Ku Klux Klan. They think average Americans are scum. They're all racist. They hate average Americans, right? They're all very wealthy people. They're all from wealthy backgrounds, and, and they hate average Americans. And so the fact that I was from a small town, the fact that I grew up in a religious family was always like a strike against me. And when I went to Iran, the Iranians didn't think that was a bad thing. They thought it was a good thing. They're like, wow, you're an American. You're a white dude from Ohio, from a small town, and you like us? That's cool. And I was like, yeah, actually, that is cool. And they're like, if more white dudes from Ohio, more like small town white dudes from Ohio liked Iran, this world would be a better place now, wouldn't it, Caleb? And I was just like, actually, yeah, it would be. And they got me to realize, like, stop trying to be something you're not. Stop hating your identity. And that was a big, important thing. The other thing was I grew up in a town, and I went to church. I got baptized and confirmed in 8th grade, and I read the Bible, the entire Bible, and studied it. And, I knew all about religion. And when I was in Iran, people talk about religion all the time. You'll be talking about world politics, and they'll be like, well, that was just like what Moses did, or, and that there are all these Bible references. And what amazed me was that my memory of the Bible came back to me when I was in Iran. And they would ask me a lot, right? They weren't trying to convert me to Islam, but they were curious. What do Christians believe? And it all was coming back to me when I was in Iran. They'd say, well, what do Christians believe about the end times, Caleb? What do Christians believe about Jesus? What do Christians believe about Moses? What do Christians believe? It was, and to engage with them, it was meaningful. And I'm like, wow, all this, my upbringing, who I am and my religion and my background, that's not a bad thing. That's not something to be ashamed of. Seeing the supreme leader of Iran was a life-changing experience, which I've talked about on other streams. And I don't want to get into that on here, because again, I could do a whole stream just on this. Seeing the way the Islamic Republic, the Basij councils that they have these like revolutionary committees. They're in every neighborhood. They're called Basij. That was very meaningful. I learned a lot in Iran. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. All right. And Mariah says she's Christian and she sees a spiritual breakdown. Yeah, I do too. And that, a lot of people have pointed out that Marxism is just secular Christianity. The values are all the same, right? It's got a narrative of human history that we used to have primitive communism, right? We used to have communism and then we fell. Right. There was the fall of man. We started having private property. But then, amid this world of sin and private property and people being mean to each other, a revolutionary movement came into the world. And that revolutionary movement is going to lead to a great, gigantic battle between good and evil. And then afterwards, we'll go back to that state of equality, but it'll be a state of abundance. That's very Christian. And in fact, many people have pointed out that, like, the Garden of Eden, right, in the Bible, right, before Adam and Eve ate the apple, before the fall of man, they didn't have to work, right? It says after Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden, and God says to them, you will work by the sweat of your brow. You will live by the sweat of your brow. They had to grow their own food, and Adam will push a plow. It was the origin of agriculture. In the Garden of Eden, they were hunting and gathering. They had everything they needed. They could pick fruits they were hunter-gatherers. And being kicked out of the garden, that's the origin of private property in the state. That's the origin of agriculture. It's all right there. That's what, Frederick Engels wrote this whole book, The Origin of the Family, Private Property in the State. It's about how we used to be hunter-gatherers. We used to be in this garden, where we had everything we needed. We didn't need to grow crops. We didn't need to domesticate animals. We just, we hunted and gathered. Everything was just kind of there for us to take. But then somehow we acquired knowledge of good and evil. We acquired knowledge. And then that led to us being kicked out of the garden and having to work. Well, that sounds a lot to me like, with our intellect, we suddenly became inventors. We invented those spears. We invented those rocks. We were able to, we got too good at hunting and gathering. We had to start growing our own food, right? And, and patriarchy, right? It talks about Eve and they're kicked out of the garden and patriarchy emerges. You look at it, right? The story of Adam and Eve seems very much to be about the transition from primitive communism to class society. That's what it seems to very much be. And then, if you read the book of Revelations, at the end, right, what happens? The Garden of Eden returns. We go back to a state of abundance where no one is hungry and all have what they need, right? And the tree of life reemerges, right? And so it's like we're trying to return to Eden. But in order to return to Eden, we have to work out what we dealt with at the fall. right? We acquired this knowledge of good and evil. And now we're going to spend thousands and thousands of years trying to adjust to what do we do with this knowledge? How does we got the spark of divinity? That's what happened, right? Whatever it was. I'm not saying what it was, right? That's up to you to decide. But somehow we were in the garden and everything was just in balance. And human beings, we used to be like animals, right? We used to be like animals. Ants have been building their ant farms the same way for thousands of years. Beaver has been building their beaver dams the same way for thousands of years. And there was this thing called humanity. And humans they were being perfectly in balance, right? They were just living the same way. But then somehow humans gained the spark of divinity. Somehow they got the spark of divinity, knowledge of good and evil, whatever you want to call it. They suddenly they woke up. They gained the knowledge of good and evil. And suddenly they were inventing technology. They were, getting too good at hunting and gathering. They were, and they had to grow their own food, and there was a scarcity. And with our knowledge of good and evil, with that spark of divinity that we got, suddenly that threw us out of balance with nature. And that spark of divinity that we got is also the basis of evil, right? We know Cain killed Abel, right? There was no murder when Adam and Eve were just living in the garden happy. There was no murder, but Adam and Eve, it was their children who committed murder, right? When it was over jealousy, right? It was jealousy that caused the murder, right? And that also, sexual immorality, right? The idea is that, after they eat the fruit, suddenly they realize they're naked. And it's like, you get the idea that in whatever was there before human beings had the spark of divinity, it seems like in the story, if you read it, there was no sexual immorality. People weren't, predatorily sexual to each other. No one felt a need to cover up. And on top of that, people weren't murdering each other. There was no patriarchy. Men and women were pretty much equal, and there was just these two people in the garden that were just chilling out, and they, eating apples and living kind of an animalistic existence. But then they ate the fruit. They got the spark of divinity. They got the knowledge of good and evil. And suddenly that gave them the ability to know too much. They couldn't just that things weren't in balance anymore. They suddenly had the ability to change the way they interacted with their environment. This is what Marxism teaches us. Marxism teaches us that human beings are unique that we have the ability to force the environment to serve us. And suddenly, with that spark of divinity, humans acquired the uniqueness of human existence, right? And this is, again, there's an exact parallel here. The Marxist narrative of human history, that everything was in balance. We were in hunter-gatherer civilization. And somehow we got smart. We got intelligence. And that intelligence led to people murdering other people. And that intelligence led to rape and sexual abuse. And that intelligence led to patriarchy and women being subjugated by men. And that intelligence led to us having to work because we were breeding. There were so many of us that we had to start growing our own food. And us having that spark of divinity, that creative power, threw everything off. And then Marxism teaches us that human beings have been constantly trying to get to a higher mode of production, a higher level of abundance in society, a higher level of equality in social relations. There's been class struggle. There's been clashing modes of production. And that we're basically trying to work out, how do we deal with the fact that we have this spark of divinity? How do we use our spark of divinity, our creative power, to get to a higher plane? We're always getting to a higher plane, but that higher plane leads to new contradictions. But then Marxism teaches that we eventually, through science, became aware of the objective laws of history, and a movement emerged called socialism that lays the basis for us to once again restore the Garden of Eden, once again to get back to a society where people can just do what they want to do, from each according to their own ability to each according to their needs, which is what there was in Eden before everything got out of balance. We'll bring the world back into balance. Marxism talks about the end of history, right? That all history is class struggle, and communism is the end of history, meaning that, we're no longer at the mercy of nature, right? That, the way Frederick Engels puts it in Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific, the way he says it is that man has full dominance over nature, is no longer at the mercy of nature. You look at it, there is a very similar parallel. The Marxist narrative of human history and the Christian narrative of human history are very similar. Not in their specifics. Karl Marx wasn't writing about a tree. Karl Marx didn't believe in God, but ideal communist world where all things are in balance, things fall out of balance, the world is out of balance, and then a movement comes into existence that lays the basis for things to once again get back into balance. Right? There's a pretty strong overlap in those two narratives. I apologize if this is triggering people in the chat. It shouldn't trigger you, right? There's many atheists who will agree with me about this. You don't have to be a Christian to see these parallels. And in fact, one of the people who constantly baited Marxists over this was Nietzsche. Nietzsche was constantly pointing out that he felt socialism and Christianity were the same thing, right? It was the religion of jealousy created by the weak against the strong, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, if you look at the narrative, and what's also interesting is that a lot of ancient societies had a similar narrative. The concept of the fall of man is in almost every religion, right? The ancient Greeks, they had a concept of the fall of man. The ancient Egyptians, they all had this notion, everything used to be perfect, and then something went wrong. And we had to start growing our own food, and something went wrong. And then we started having kingdoms and families. And, there was this like ideal existence before everything went wrong. And like every religion that has sprung up seems to have this knowledge that before the dawn of civilization, there was an ideal state. And then we did something wrong, and that ruined everything. And then we're trying to get back to that ideal state. That's Norse mythology, the Ragnarok, the god of Demerara. It's the same stuff. So there you go. So I hope that answered your question, Mariah. And that I would argue that Marxism it was in the age when feudalism was being destroyed, when science was on the march. Karl Marx had Christian values, and he was trying to apply them in a scientific way. He was taking the knowledge of sociology, the knowledge of history, the knowledge of economics, and he had Christian values, but he was angry at the church, and he was angry at the fact that his family was forcibly converted. Did you know that? Karl Marx's family were forcibly converted. Karl Marx was of Jewish heritage, but his father was forced to convert in order to keep his job. And so Karl Marx rejected Christianity, but he had Christian values. He believed, that the oppressed should win justice. He hated the rulers. He hated the capitalists and the exploiters. And he believed that the oppressed, the meek shall inherit the earth. And that, he had Christian values, but he very much wanted to frame them in a scientific way. He didn't believe in God. He rejected all those superstitions. So Karl Marx invented a worldview, a way of understanding the world that rejected anything spiritual, that rejected anything supernatural or religious, but somehow held on to the Christian narrative. I think that's very much what Marx was doing, not consciously, but subconsciously, right? The Christianity that was the prevailing religion of Germany when he was growing up, he kind of scientized it or something, right? But he fit it in with the history. But anyway, let's get to the next question. All right. And Mariah also says they are Malthusians. Yeah, Malthusianism is common. Overpopulation, right? I was taught in school, there's no question about it. I had a science teacher who said, there's 6 billion people in the world, and taught us Malthusianism as if there was no debate about it. Malthusianism. All right. Malthusianism, I wrote it down, Lori. I'll answer that. Malthusianism, is accepted. I mean, people just assume, right? You're expected to believe, yes, there's too many people in the world. Yes, we must decrease the human population. You turn on the Discovery Channel, Malthusianism is like the official religion of the West. It's in there with that cult, that spiritual or that philosophical irrationalism and all of that. It's just part of the religion. It's just part of the, you were taught there's just too many people in the world. And I am pumped for Peter Coffin's documentary. I have watched it. It's awesome. And it premieres on Sunday. It's going to be great. So yeah, overpopulation is bullshit. Overpopulation is bullshit. Overpopulation is bullshit. It is. And it is a nasty lie. It's an anti-human lie. And, the only reason that anyone would believe in overpopulation is because they're trying to save capitalism, because the problem is not too many people in the world. So there we go. Danny claims to support China, but she does not want us to be poor. Exactly. And how is Danny supporting China? By telling American workers that it's in their interest to oppose China. That's what he's saying. Right? Xi Jinping thinks America could be a much more prosperous country if the American workers and the Chinese workers were doing business with each other. Xi Jinping would love for the United States to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. But Danny says, no, American workers are the beneficiaries of imperialism. And Danny's going out of his way he hates average Americans. He hates the working class of America. But he just has this, this belief that somehow, anyone who's against the United States around the world is good. And, but he blames the American working class. I mean, he thinks the American working class are the enemy. So there you go. All right. Biden and Bernie invoke patriotism all the time. Exactly. They don't call every Biden supporter or every Bernie supporter a Nazi. Right? But I'm a Nazi for some reason, right? It's selective. It's because I've been canceled, because mainstream media has decided to go after me, because I'm the RT guy, because I met Dugan, because I am sympathetic to the Islamic Revolution of Iran, because I want to build a revolutionary organization that could actually have a base among the population, it actually succeed. So I've been singled out, and they just have to go along with it. These are the kind of people that would have joined lynch mobs years ago, right? Oh, the crowd of people is going to go hang somebody. Well, I guess I got to go do it. I can't stand against the crowd, right? Oh, someone's being targeted. We're all being told by the leaders to go and attack somebody. I guess you just got to join the mob. That's what these people are. That's what they're doing, right? Mainstream media, BreadTube, all of them have said, go after Caleb. And these people have said, oh, okay, I guess I'll go along with that, right? Never occurs to them the attacks on me might be coming from a bad place. Never occurs to them that the same people that think they're Nazis because they're sympathetic with Russia are also going after me. Never occurs to them, right? No. They join the mob to go after me, right? They're scum, and you're not a revolutionary if you do that. It's just like what I read to you about Ireland, right? I read you the quote about Marx in Ireland. When the British Empire was mobilizing British English workers to hate the Irish, Marx said, do the opposite. Well, now BreadTube and all of social media is being mobilized to hate me, and they go along with it. So there you go. There you go. All right. Soviet cinema. Sergei Eisenstein makes great movies. Go watch October by Sergei Eisenstein. Great history of the Russian Revolution. It's details you won't get elsewhere. Go and watch Battleship Potemkin. When that movie Battleship Potemkin came out in the 1920s, it was like epic. We showed it at one of the CPI retreats, and it's a silent movie, but people were on the edge of their seat. It's a it's a classic. Ivan the Terrible, also a very, very good movie. A very, very, very good movie. So there you go. Where did the godless communism crap come from? Godless communism crap came from the fact that in the age where the Soviet Union was coming into existence, and the age when Marx was living and the 1848 revolutions, feudalism was still the primary system. And feudalism, religion is not a choice, right? You don't have the option of being a Christian in feudal Europe. It's forced on you. And the church was an institution that propped up feudalism. In feudalism, it was told, that the landowners, they have the divine right of God. The king has the divine right to rule over you, and that religion was the main way that feudal society was kept intact. It was suppressing science, etc. So because of that, revolutionaries, the French Revolution and the English Civil War, they were against religion because religion was seen as an entity that, that was threatening them. And the Russian Orthodox Church and other things, they were seen as an entity that was opposing science, that was opposing the revolutionary transformation of society, was propping up the old order. And so religion became a target of Marxist movements around the world because that's what it was. But a lot has changed. The 20th century is over. And nowadays, all the communists, again, there's just so many of these things. I am in line with the global communist movement. If you go around the world, communists sound like me. Okay? In Russia, the leader of the Russian Communist Party, Zhuganov, is a Christian. In Russia, the Communist Party is a real party that has millions of members. And the leader of that party is a Christian. And his name is Zhuganov, Gennady Zhuganov. And he's a Christian. And if there's anyone who knows what communism is really about, it's the Russians. If there's any communist party in the world that understands communism, it's the Russian Communist Party. And the head of the Russian Communist Party is a Christian. In Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro is Roman Catholic. Hugo Chavez is Roman Catholic. Hugo Chavez gave many, many speeches about the Bible, where he talked about how Jesus was the greatest socialist in all of history. I mean, Hugo Chavez ranted and raved about Christianity and the Bible and Christian values. In Nicaragua, the socialist government of Nicaragua, their slogan that they have painted everywhere, I've been there, I've seen it, is Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. That's the slogan of the government: Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. Right? Fidel Castro, in the final years of his life, he said he was a Christian. He considered himself to be a Christian. He repudiated his atheism. He met with Russian Orthodox clergymen. He met with the Pope, and he made peace with God. Fidel Castro returned to God in the 90s. He converted back to Christianity, and he says that in his autobiography in many places. Fidel Castro died a Christian. He died a believer. He was an atheist most of his life, but he returned to Christ before his death in the 90s. And the Pope visited Cuba, etc. And that's a historical fact. So, 21st century socialism is not atheistic. In China, it is. In North Korea, it is. There's a lot of Christians in North Korea, but yeah, the Korean Workers' Party is atheist. In China, the Chinese Communist Party, again, there's a lot of Christians and a lot of Muslims and a lot of Buddhists in China, but the Chinese Communist Party is atheist. But the global communist movement largely is sympathetic to religion. And on top of that, right, there are many non-Marxist forms of socialism. Baath socialism, Baathist Arab socialism in Syria, right? That's a socialism, it's a socialist, revolutionary, anti-imperialist movement. They built a socialist society. The country's in a civil war now, but, they built a socialist independent state. The president of Syria, Bashar Assad, is an Alawite. All right, that's a sect, a breakaway from Islam, Alawite. And, most Syrians are Sunnis. And now the Syrian constitution gives special attention to Sunni Islam. It's a secular government, but, it's very clear the Baath Party recognizes Islam as being inherent. And in Iraq, it was the same way, right? Technically a secular government, but Islam is considered a big influence on their political system. And the same in Libya, right? In Libya, if you read the Green Book, they talk about how Islam and the Islamic teaching was the basis of the Libyan socialist government. 21st century socialism is not atheistic, right? Except in China, except in North Korea. But you have to remember, it's different in Asia, because in North Korea, Korea is a little bit different, but in China, China wasn't like a Christian country before they had the revolution, right? There were Christians in China, but for the most part in China, they just had local practices and local traditions, and there were a variety of rituals and traditions, but China didn't have like an overall religion for the whole country. Taoism was there, Buddhism was there. There were a lot of local customs and traditions and rituals, temples where they sacrificed things and stuff. But there was not like one religion for the Chinese nation. There were Christian missionaries and stuff. So when the communists took power, they weren't fighting against like the prevailing religion that was there. It was just kind of like, okay, before we've had a kind of a variety of religions and practices, and now we have communism, right? And revolutionaries, not just communists, but revolutionaries in China viewed all of those practices in a negative light. Dr. Sun Yat-sen's first revolutionary act was smashing a temple. Did you know that? He went, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he went to a place where these peasants were like burning incense and sacrificing animals, and he smashed it. And he said, don't do this. This is humiliation. We need science like they have in the West. And the Cultural Revolution was very similar to that in China. They were destroying anything associated with religion because there was a feeling that we want to be modern, right? That the imperialists have kept us primitive and superstitious. We want to modernize China. We want to be scientific, but there's still a lot of religion in China, a huge amount of religion in China, and after the Cultural Revolution was over, there was an explosion of various, religious practices. Falun Gong actually emerged in the 80s. And then there was like a fight in the party about whether they'd promote it and traditional Chinese medicine. And there was all kinds of, religious kind of superstitious practices in China that once the Cultural Revolution was over, like exploded. And in the 80s, they got out of control and the Chinese Communist Party started like pushing back against them. There's a whole history of that. So, yes, the Chinese Communist Party is more or less an atheist party. Yes, the Korean Workers' Party is more or less an atheist party. The Cuban Communist Party at this point is very Christian dominated. Bolivarian socialism in Latin America is overwhelmingly Christian. The Russian Communist Party is Christian. Ba'ath socialism in the Middle East and Gaddafi, they were Muslims. I just, at this point, the fight between communism and religion is over because of the fact that the ruling class of the world has shifted. They're no longer fighting communism on the basis of we got to destroy communism and we got to bring good Christian Western values against communist totalitarianism. That's out of date. That's 1950s McCarthyism stuff. Nowadays, it's freedom of thought and freedom of mind with Dr. Steve Hassan. I believe in freedom of mind. There is no truth. Everything's just a matter of opinion. You don't want to join a cult. They've got Dr. Steve Hassan there. Don't be brainwashed by thinking right and wrong exist. That's propaganda. Now there is no truth. And communism and religion are both a threat because they both believe in truth. And communism and religion both believe in right and wrong. Oh my God, can't have that. That's totalitarianism. If you're saying there's right and wrong, you're saying that truth exists. You're saying there's a purpose in life. You don't want everyone to just be depressed and suicidal. Oh my God, there's truth in the world. We can't have that. So religion and communism are both a target. They're both forms of illiberalism. And the liberal order wants to destroy them all. It wants to smash them all. So there you go. I mean, at this point, communism and religion are on the same team against liberalism. So there you go. All right, folks, I guess that's where we'll end for tonight. A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. The people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. Good night.